Media plays such an important role in shaping public opinion around the world. However, with this importance comes the danger of bias, especially the bias against Islam in the Western media.
When you think back of 9/11, and for those who were not in the Middle East, but for those who were dependent on information coming out of BBC, out of CNN, other news channels in Europe, they had no chance to hear an imam saying that the terror attack is absolutely not in line with the Quran. The people didn't hear the imam saying that, although he was saying it. In consequence, Islam and the Muslim world was framed in the Western media pretty much only to the topic of terror. And as the people in the Western world are human beings as they are in the Arabic world, nobody wants to be close with terrorists. And if the only news you get from the Muslim world is coming out of the evening news, what do? You are not that much interested in dialogue.
That's why King Abdullah's initiative for dialogue among the followers of religion is important, and the efforts of the kingdom to reach out to the outside world were recognized.
We analyze at Media Tenor every single news report in more than 69 different TV news, primetime news, in China, in Turkey, in Africa, all over the world. And it is fascinating to see, out of all G20 countries, the country with the most diverse media coverage, with the best media image in the year 2009 was actually Saudi Arabia. And that is why Saudi Arabia is winning the G20 Communicator Award this year. We were finding out that they were the most diverse ones, and we as Media Tenor are honoring this fantastic work, and therefore we give the award to those who are in charge of communication in Saudi Arabia.
The pioneering research of Media Tenor provide data on the major patterns in the news coverage.
And what you can see with this data is the pattern. When you look at a year or 2 years or even 3 or 4 years of news coverage, you can see, for example, some countries don't get covered much. Or if a country is covered, it's almost always covered about the same issue or in the same way. And so what this quantitative data can tell us, whether we're media scholars or news reporters, is what isn't being covered, what needs to be done. And that fundamentally is the sort of thing that media companies have a real challenge doing for themselves. Their resources are spread so thin now. The news business, as you know, is facing tough economic times in the United States and around the world. And what this research offers them is a chance to look at the larger waterfront, the larger perspective in terms of coverage across time, and give them a sense of where they need to improve, how they can do better, the places that they're missing, the stories that they haven't covered as effectively as they might. The data can be very, very valuable in this way.
Media Tenor opened its archive of the last 10 years of monitoring TV newscasts to many universities around the world to utilize this data in their media research. Media Tenor capabilities can also help companies, governments, and institutions to understand the media and how to deal with it. One of these institutions is Kofi Annan Foundation, the former Secretary General of the United Nations.
Well, Mr. Annan, who is the president of our foundation, is in the business of trying to influence the agenda on some of the big issues of our day and of our world. Media Tenor helps us understand how his voice is actually being heard out there, and zooms in on the impact of what he says, and also on where the issues that he's interested in and the ones that he intervenes in are in terms of the interest of the public. And therefore the feedback we get helps us target much more specifically some of the messages that Mr. Annan gives out.
Scientific research will make it easy to understand media and expose bias.
By analyzing every single report, you get two things. On one hand, you get a perfect understanding what makes it into the news, but at the same time you see as well what was missed out, which is not a problem if it's missed out one day. But if a story is missed out over almost 1 year, you recognize here are things going wrong. Just one example, every 22nd a child is dying on malaria, and this story is not making it into the evening news. But we had thousands of stories in regards to bird flu, and I think till today only 70 people died on bird flu.
For Bridges, this is Aziz Fahmy in Zurich, Switzerland.